this interesting too because he's doing everything as if he is a Malat, but he can't be because he's a man.
Correct. Yep.
But he's following all the rituals. You tell me a story, and he goes, "Well, I had a friend. Well, it should be a sad story. Well, he died." You know, like I find these dialogues to be kind of. I know that's not meant to be funny, but the way they're writing it out, it's quirky. You know, like,
well, that's the absolute candor, and that's what I liked about it. You know, because they say exactly what the first thing is in their head, and there's no filter, there's no governor. You know, why did you forget me? You know. Why was I not in your heart? All those things.
Right.
Because that's what he's feeling he's saying. He's not waiting for an answer. He's not looking to see if it's going to come out in another way. He just boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, and I liked
fires
it.
quickly. Yeah.
It gets me in trouble a lot, but I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
And but so he goes through all this, and he kind of turns Picard down. Just no. And then eventually he comes around. The whole fight happens. But Picard is mad at him for killing the guy.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't deserve to die. And I find that that's also a sign. It's not just for that situation. Like, I feel like you can look at it this way. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but you can look at it like if you keep attacking them, they're only justified in their hatred of you in the first place.
Yeah, I just thought it was more, you know, it was funny. It was an interesting scene for me. I didn't like that he disciplined the kid because the kid just saved his life. So I thought that the timing of it and the way he approached it was too direct. You know, there was no explanation. You know, no one gets killed unless I say da 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 da. Very very strict, very disciplined, very military, versus more paternal and getting him to understand the why. So this, you know, Elnor just thought he did a wonderful thing. This guy was going to kill Picard. It was him. There probably wouldn't have been any other way to solve the issue, by the way.
No,
I do understand. Yeah, but I do understand where Picard's coming from in terms of, you know, compassion. You know, you have to understand what he was feeling. If we could have just, you know, got the blade out of his hand and so forth and got out of there, that would have been great. But still, you know, that was another scene that made me uncomfortable watching. Again, a good one, and it still shows me that where everybody else is on the 2-4, when it comes to Picard and younger people, he's still on the 1-3. He is not in sync, I don't think.
So, okay, I meant to bring this up, and I didn't even put it in the notes. In the very beginning of the episode, when we first meet him, they say Picard doesn't like children.
Right.
Which kind of drove me crazy. Because I've been saying that for years, and everyone keeps correcting me. Everyone keeps saying, "Oh no, after Picard Day, he loves children," and I've been saying, "No, he doesn't." And everyone keeps telling me, "No, I'm wrong. And then this show confirmed he still wasn't comfortable with children.
Yeah, and I think they were talking about him and his reputation because it obviously preceded him. At the same time, it was obvious that you know, when he lost his nephew, things changed. You know, when he, in that episode of Family in particular, that relationship with Renee, and I know it's his nephew, so it's a little bit different than just any child. But, you know, when he was watching him look at the stars and all that stuff, I kind of felt that there was a little bit of a sea change there. And then, you know, there was some of those other episodes, you know, where the ship is destroyed and he's got to rescue the kids and all that stuff, and he allows them on the bridge. So he lightens up. He does lighten up. But he does have affection for this, for Elnor. He did, and it was obvious. He gave him the book. He was reading to them. Very, very paternal. And I think as we get older, a lot of folks become more reflective. You know, a tough father is usually a pretty loving grandfather. You know, that type of thing. I just kind of see that, you know.
No, I agree, but I just found it interesting because they did do a job. They did. I'm wrong. They tried to make him more of a family man as time went on.
As time went on. Yeah.
But we went back to he doesn't like children. And then the kid is upset. He's like, I thought you were fond of me. He goes, no, I am fond of you. And I find that interesting because when you find anyone who doesn't like something or people or whatever, they can tend to find some kind of exception. And you find that a lot with kids. Like, I don't want kids. I don't like kids. But your kids I like. You know, like,
yeah.
You find that a lot. And I found that to be like that kind of scene with Picard. But it was just weird that they started off with he doesn't like children, and he kind of
Right.
admits it. Like he's like, "Oh yeah, I don't." And I think it goes back to also he didn't want them on his starship.
Well, of course. Yeah.
You know,
It
which-
was- yeah. Neither did I.
Right, which,
So
I
I was
gonna
aligned.
which makes sense, but
Yeah. I get it.
right.
But he said they make him. He's uncomfortable. So you've got a person who's trying to be this infallible captain of a majestic flagship of the Federation and all this other stuff, and then you've got the element of children that can disarm you, and you can't talk to them the same way, and he only knows one way. So I understand why it made him very uncomfortable, and that's why he said it.
Well, and on top of that, this is not really talked much, but Starfleet is a military organization.
Yeah.
I'm tired of dancing around this issue and calling it paramilitary. It's not. It's clearly a military, or even if it's exploration, it's a military organization. It's a lot harder to go into battle knowing you have children on board.
Well, yeah, that's why I said none of that element of it made no sense to me. Still doesn't. I understood what Gene Roddenberry was trying to do, and if it was a straight ship of exploration going through areas that are well known, but you're digging under the surface more, that's one thing. When you're going into the whole unknown, or you're doing diplomatic missions or war patrols, which happens so often on the show, it made no sense.
Right.
But I get it.
I agree.
So, yeah.
All right, so back to the Binding of the Blade. One of the things I did like about it is that Picard kept calling it a quest.
Right.
It's not a word we've ever heard in Star Trek before, really. Everything's always been a mission.
Yeah, not since Galaxy Quest have we heard that in Star Trek.
Exactly. So, but now he keeps referring to it as a quest, and I'm a nerd, so I like D&D, stuff like that. So
Okay.
hearing Picard has to go on a quest now, and it makes it also feel more, as if he is detached from Starfleet, that it's not just Starfleet Light happening now,
Right. No, I agree. I guess I didn't really think much about it, but when I hear quest, I put the word noble next to it, and it works for me, especially with Picard. So
Right.
that works for me. Yeah.
Right. I can see that. The other thing I didn't like about the scene was when the kid said, "That's why you need somebody, but why do you need me?" Picard's answer was, "Well, I'm old, you're young." Like, I expected an answer like, "I know you, I trust you, I saw you grow," or something better than "You're young, you're a good bladesman."
That goes back to what I was saying, about him disciplining Elnor on the ship. He doesn't have those natural paternal type moments. He's just a bit out of sync when it comes to dealing with. Now, I know Elnor is not a kid, but he is very young. He is still immature. He's all those things, and Picard struggles with it. He just does, and it's awkward, And I just think he's very matter of fact or whatever, and he's sometimes he just comes off as that stepdad that nobody likes.
Yeah.
That's a good way of putting it. He means to be a jerk about things. He's just not in sync.
Yeah, I like the way you put that, because that's exactly what he is for this kid.
Yeah.
And it does lead to the right outcome, because I believe that if he had given an answer like I was saying, then Elnor would have taken the quest there.
Yes.
Not have walked away. But if you
But we
told
have
me,
to have the trope. We have to have.
Yeah.
That's still. There are a lot of tropes in this episode, and that is another one. Oh no! And he's coming back.
Of course you do.
It's just
of
like,
course you do.
come on. We've only seen this a million times, but let's just do it, because it'll take another 4 minutes up, and I still have to deal with Soji, and just like, come on.
So, exactly. But then, all right, so now he gets beamed back up to the ship, and we see this other ship come in to help them fighting. Bird of Prey looked really good, by the way.
Yeah, it did.
And
they did a nice job with it.
We finally see their ship, and it looks pretty cool. I like the red paint job and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're getting whooped, and they can't outrun it. They can't outgun it, but apparently they're going to outpilot it by spinning around in circles on it. That wasn't working. And we see the other ship come in, and this is the point where, for anyone who noticed guest starring Jerry Ryan, this is the point, like you said off air, that this was going to be obvious.
Mm-hmm.
That this is going to be 7 of 9 that beams aboard. And I found it interesting how they got to that point, though, where they were arguing over whether they should or should not beam the captain aboard without ever telling you. They didn't want you to be told who the captain was, because obviously they wanted the reveal to be when she beams on.
Well, they kept saying him, right? And so it's like
Right.
him, he, and he, and who he is. And now maybe it's just they're just more gender neutral, just like everybody's sir or something like that. But yeah, it no matter how much they try to go left or right to give you any suspense, you're going, okay, it's 7 of 9. Cause,
Let's get to that. Let's come on, show her.
Yeah.
You know?
Because she's the special guest star that you pointed out in your 3-minute opening there, and you're just going, okay, so she's coming. Here she is.
Right.
So,
and we're running out of time, so it has to be now.
It
Like,
has to be now.
this episode's over.
So I'm glad she's arrived, and I'm glad now we can start moving the plot forward. And I think it's like, yes, okay, now I think things are going to get ramped up a little bit. I'm hoping.
Yeah, well, I agree, because now we have the whole crew. We have basically his bodyguard. We have a pilot or a captain. Mm-hmm. Although the captain is basically a pilot, because Picard's the captain, even though he's not the captain. It's very weird. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's kind of bothering me. Like, you're on someone else's ship, even as someone who was a captain once. I've been a foreman on a job, and then I've been a worker, and I know my place, no matter which position I'm in.
Yeah, it's it's habit is what it is, and Picard was the captain of the Stargazer for a long time, so he was like one of those young captains. It's all he knows, pretty much, and so he got all the way up to admiral. So he's just wherever he's been probably for up to that point for the last 50 years or some crazy number. That's just what he knows, and so it's just a natural thing to start to fall into, and I find myself, even when I'm on pleasure boats and all that stuff, I just got to kind of step back sometimes. I was down in Florida with my dad, and we have this guy who runs this boat for one of my father's friends. And, I'm like, okay, we'll cast off this line, do this, do that. And then I go, wait, that's not my place. But it is a very natural thing to do.
I guess if you put it that way, that's true, because I'll walk into a restaurant and be like, those lights are off, that outlet's out of the wall, that's not straight. And I mean, I don't tell people about it, except my wife, who now hates me because I tell her about every imperfection in every building we've ever walked in. But,
All right. I'll never invite you over for that. We'll have to meet it.
Just fix that outlet. That light is 6 inches off or 6 centimeters off, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess putting it that way, it's true. I don't know. It's just the way it happened, I guess, in this episode where he's like, he said something and he's like, oh, and then he looks to the captain, and then the very next minute he's like, beam him aboard. Like, dude, didn't you just realize that was the wrong thing to do like a second ago?
Yep.
Like, this should have lasted a little bit longer than it did. You realizing you're not the captain. I don't know. It bothers me. Oh, you know what? One thing I forgot to talk about. I found it very interesting with Elnor. I found it very interesting with Elnor that he's actually, all right, so normally we see in the world over the last 50 or so years, women trying to break into men's worlds.
Yep.
Like construction industry, let's say, right? Women are now much more accepted than they would have been 50 years ago.
Sure.
But we saw them get a lot of, and still to some degree, get heat for it. People will say things about them or talk behind their back or whatever, right?
Sure.
We see the exact opposite happening to him in that, like, when he first comes in, someone says sissy boy.
Oh,
when
really? I missed that, yeah.
I did too. I didn't hear it, but when I had the closed captions on, the second viewing, they said something. They said they called him a sissy boy because he's in a woman's industry.
Right.
And I find that a very interesting twist on that whole dynamic.
Yeah, that is. And it doesn't make sense in Romulan culture because women have been dominant throughout, right? Even to TOS, the first Romulan commander we meet is female. So it's as balanced as there is a culture. There is no sense of glass ceiling. So that doesn't kind of go along with what we know.
Not in the way they did it. They should have had a woman saying something about it.
Yeah.
Because they had a man saying something. Now, if the women who are dominant, it would make more sense that direction.
In that sect, yes, I agree with you. But in the context of Romulan society, it doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. But it did happen, which I find interesting because, again, it's Star Trek has always, if it's nothing else, been a mirror back to what we see going on today. And I think there's some of that happening. So they're trying to plug it in. They may have plugged it in the wrong place, but I kind of like that they plugged it in.
Yeah, I missed it, so I'll have to go back to see how that fits in the scene. But